So I'm truly honored and thrilled to be with you all today as the founder and curator of the Women Inspiring Network. And thank you so much, Spandana, from World Innovation Week and now Davos Innovation Week for allowing us to do this panel. As you all know, that Women Inspiring Network was born during the pandemic, and it's a movement to pay it forward. We have 7,000 women in India on the community and 200 influential women. And I'm really, really glad that with all of you at Davos during the World Economic Forum, we have our leaders, thinkers, and visionaries who will converge to discuss and shape the future. We've had the privilege of participating in many groundbreaking events, including the G20 in India. And I'm really filled with joy to have these thought-provoking discussions that are guaranteed to set us apart and create a journey, when we embark on this journey, which will be collective enlightenment, paving the way to positive change on women leadership. It's my great pleasure to welcome you all on the inaugural panel, as we're doing 3 panels during the World Economic Forum. The first one, which is Women in Leadership and how diverse leadership contribute to innovation and business success. And I would also like Daniela Foster to probably come and say a few words as our opening remark, because I heard her speak at the ADECO and APCO World Leaders Forum, and I'm really, really glad because she'll have a lot to share. So since we are waiting for one of our panelists to join, I would request Daniela, and she could probably take a seat and do this, because I know she's hurt herself, injured herself, to talk more on women leadership to get our session started for the day. Thank you, Daniela.
Well, good afternoon, everyone. It's fantastic that you can be here. I am going to stand. I've come to Davos with a bit of an injury, but people have said, Daniela, you're brave for coming, and I said, I'm either brave or crazy, but ask me on Friday, so we'll see. I had a pleasure of being with a number of the women here just last night at the kickoff of the Women's Leader Reception here at Davos. What I think is fascinating, if I look at this Davos, is that it's one of the largest Davos ever. And increasingly, I'm seeing a more diverse Davos, and I'm particularly seeing more women in the equation. So perhaps I'll just share a couple of the things that I shared last night at the women's session to get us kind of thinking about this topic of diverse leadership and what that means for companies and for business, because we know it's really good business. One thing, when I think about women and women on boards, I read a really great article recently in the Harvard Business Review. And they said, one of the things that makes women particularly good, there's 3 things that make women particularly good board members. And they boiled it down to 3 things. And one, they said they come prepared. They come to the meetings prepared. They read the pre-reads, they are ready to roll. The second is that they ask the tough questions, and they're not afraid to lean in and do that. And then the third is that they create inclusive environments. So one of my kind of calls to you as we go into this panel will be, how do we ensure that our session today creates that inclusive environment, which we're going to try to do as best we can. And then also, just thinking more broadly on the business perspective, the data on diversity in business is striking. There's a real business case for this, I will say. If I think about just the industry that I'm in healthcare, with Bayer or Bayer, you may know us, depending on where you're from, you'll know us through either of those names. The purchasing decisions for healthcare, 90% of those decisions are made by women. And in many ways, we're a women's healthcare company. So it's kind of core to our business to understand who purchases our products and to design with that in mind. So those are just a couple of initial thoughts as we dive in, and I'm looking forward to a dialogue with all of you.
Thank you so much, Daniela. And Daniela, you can take a seat so you don't have to come back. So as you all know, she's the Global Head of Public Affairs, Science and Sustainability at Bayer's Consumer Health Division and responsible for global public affairs, embedding sustainability into the divisional business model. Foster has led us to corporate and government affairs, business turnarounds, ESG, and many more strategic partnerships. So thank you for welcoming. I'd, of course, now like to also call our next speaker, which is Kanika. She's not here with us right now, but Dr. Aarti Gupta, who's the Chief Investment Officer of Anikart Ventures and who's been at the Jagran family office for 13 years. She was one of the first few people who told me she's coming to Davos with me. So thank you, thank you, Aarti, for joining us today. And she's dedicated to women entrepreneurship and serves as the national head for Fiki Flow Startups. She has been recognized for the contributions, including being listed amongst the India's 30 top women torchbearers and a Women in Family Office Thought Leadership 2023. So please, can we have a round of applause to welcome Aarti? Thank you, Aarti. And next we have Ms. Pragati Sureka, a Harvard-based leader with social responsibility who founded Emotional Ability Resources, a sustainable model for emotional well-being. She has authored 8 books on EWB and mental health and addressed over 50,000 adults and children in rural and urban areas. Please welcome Pragati to join us today. Pragati, please take a seat next to Daniela. I would like to, of course, invite Iriana, and because I was told to have a really diverse group of women. Iriana is joining us from Ukraine, and she has a very strong personal brand, blending passionately confidence to drive sustainable corporate growth with a very strong background in corporate governance, and she's also heading the Ukraine women leadership community, and of course she's going to be sharing more of her thoughts with us. So please join us, Iriana. And Carl is an extraordinary motivational speaker, and he has been a powerhouse and who has just confirmed a couple of days back to join us. And he is at the Global Gurus. He's being talked about as the world's top 30 speakers in the world. So I'm going to hear more of his thought. And he was just sharing that he wanted to be on the panel because he has a young daughter. So do I. I have a 7-year-old, and I like the thought that you want to really talk about women leadership. So please join us, Carl, today. For his stellar reputation of the different industries he's been. So thank you so much for joining us. And we will wait for Kanika to join because she's stuck in traffic. So whenever she joins, I will ask her to join us. So let me start with you, Daniela, first. Given your expertise and experience in both the private and public sectors, do you believe diverse leadership teams contribute to business success, particularly in the context of healthcare industry?
Yeah, absolutely. So, of course, I believe that. And I will say I've seen this play out in a number of areas. So one, I mean, even if you just look at the data will show you that diverse teams perform 35% better. I've seen this happen even in the healthcare sector. So a really good example of this is we have a product called Elevate. It's a prenatal brand. We're the global #1 in prenatals as Bayer. And when we were sort of thinking about the purpose of this brand, where we landed is it's really to give every baby the best start in life. The first 1,000 days of life are critical. It's essential to the health, growth, and development for a baby and then ultimately for a child. And so when we took a step back, we brought a team together and we said, look, to really tackle the first 1,000 days, we also need to tackle access. How are we going to expand access to this product for those who don't have it so that we can reach more people, so that we can extend this to more babies to give everyone a better life? And when we were bringing this team together, what was really key is I have a woman on my team who's a medical doctor. She's from Tunisia. She practiced previously. And so her perspective and points of view on how to bring this into last mile delivery, how to make it most effective was essential. We also ended up bringing in an external partner, Vitamin Angels, that has a very diverse team. And that helped us accelerate initially what was a vision to now what is translated into impact. So we've now reached over 13 million pregnant women and their babies in underserved communities. And this just started out as a vision, as an idea, but really with bringing a diverse team into the room to help set that up and do it. So I do think diverse teams are critical. I also think it's important to represent the consumers that you serve. So when I think about women, I mentioned before, 90% of healthcare decisions are made by women. So when we talk about our products and we talk about our development and design, we talk about her. What does she want? What does she need? What unmet need are we solving for? So I think that's also critical and key to succeed in business. But I also think it makes the workplace interesting too, because you get diverse perspectives.
Thank you so much for that. And Dr. Gupta, steering through the intricate landscape of investments and specifically championing women's entrepreneurship must have had its hurdle. So can you please tell us a pivotal moment where overcoming a challenge not only enriched your professional experience, but your commitment in fostering diverse and transformative solutions for early stage startups?
Thanks, Stuti. What a pleasure to be here and among such a wonderful panel. Obviously, my whole journey wearing multiple hats, which I wear, had its own set of challenges. So I want to share two pivotal moments. The first one was very early, in the early days when I had just started investing in startups. And this young, fiery lady had come and pitched to me about an L&D learning tech platform which provides access for coaching and mentoring. She was a young mom and a single founder, and I thought her product was extremely innovative and what she was trying to bring. But it was my early days of investing, so I reached out to a couple of seasoned investors in the Indian startup ecosystem to kind of just get their feedback, who she had already pitched to. And I was asking for their feedback, and surprisingly, most of them came back, oh, she's a single woman founder. Do you think she'll be able to sustain? She's a young mom. Do you think she's committed enough? Is she persistent enough? And I was so surprised that none of the questions, whether to invest or not, had to do anything about the business model of the company. It all had to kind of revolve around her being a young mom, a female, and that sort of took me back, and it was my first-hand experience into seeing what we talk about, the biases which women face in terms of access to funding, and it solidified my commitment to kind of fund, train, and mentor more women entrepreneurs. I actually went ahead and invested with that company, and she's doing fantastically. She's in 4 countries. Her revenues have, multifoldly increased and stuff like that. And I think it's a great investment for me financially, but it also taught a lot to put my biases outside when I'm sort of hearing someone speak. Another pivotal moment was when I was, again, hearing this woman pitch, and she was pitching about PCOS and a platform for PCOS. It's polycystic ovaries syndrome. And again, I was one of the only woman investor in a room full of male investors. And while I was thinking, oh my God, this is what I wish this was there when I was a teenager, I had more information about this and stuff like that. Most of the men in the room did not understand what the syndrome was, and most of them had just written it off. There's not a market large enough. And that was a lightning bolt moment for me, because that's when I thought, hey, we not only need to support women in entrepreneurs, but we need women on the other side of the table as well. We need women investors. We need people who understand the solutions which women are building. So I actually work in the space of creating and providing access and masterclasses for women who want to be investors and invest in early stage startups. Just last year alone, we trained about 100 of them. So very, very passionate about this space. And
that's lovely. And all you women out there, if you're an early stage startup, please come to Aarti after our session is over, and please take some tips on that. And of course, now I'm going to go to Iriana. As a co-founder and president of Women's Leader for Ukraine, you focused on expanding where the freedom and democracy through inspiring mentorship and impact project. I love mentoring and mentorship because that's one of the reasons why the WIN network was born, because I was mentored 10 years back. So I'm really glad that you be sharing that with you. And how have you observed diverse leadership teams, particularly led by women, make a positive impact and on sustainable development and corporate growth in the sectors you've been involved in, including FMCG and some of the others?
So we need to split up question. If we talk of corporate governance and women on boards, or we talk about women leadership in
Yes.
general. Let's start with corporate governance, okay?
Yes.
And thank you, Daniela, that you already emphasized that women corporate directors come to boards very well prepared and quite well educated. Yeah, so that's professional part of women corporate directors. But I would like to focus now my speech on innate skills which women can bring to the board. And let's delve into corporate governance function. First of all, is strategy development. In this perspective, it's very important to bring collaborative decision making, and women really have ability to force teamwork in very consensus way, and they make holistic plan with which consider multitude of approaches. And by natural skills, women have very holistic and intuitive vision, which can bring bigger picture, out of the box picture. And women, again, naturally can anticipate a lot of trends. Yeah, that's in our genes, and that's fantastic for strategic making. About nomination and remuneration committee, nothing can be better than emotional intellect, which proven women are much better in that. And of course, with soft power, we can find better talents, and we feel better dynamics of people abilities or boundaries. If you talk about risk management, again, we have a radar view. We can explore much better all risk, anticipate all risk, and at the same time, we have very deep accountability about consequences of these risks. And additionally, women are more resilient, and we still can remain composed under the pressure and guide companies in uncertainties. And audit committees, for example, this is our second nature, to be very much in detail. What men cannot bring it. And if we talk about leadership in general, I would say that women bring quantum leadership. What do I mean? In quantum world, possibilities are vast, and outcomes are just interconnected. And if we compare women with quantum physics, where all particles can be in the same state, in different states at the same time. Nothing rings the bell, like women in different roles, and we just can do it without any problem. And if we talk about innovation about corporate governance, women bring this quantum leadership to the board because they understand that corporate governance is not a solo act, that's symphony. And they do governance fluid, yeah? So, and finally, as a conclusion, I would say that women are very much social responsible, and they bring companies to the success, which can be measured not only by finance, but also by social impact.
Lovely, thank you. And Pragati, in your relentless pursuit for emotional wellness, you've created an inspirational model. How does your leadership, rooted in social responsibility, has fostered innovation in the emotional well-being space and also contributed significantly tangible success for year on a broader scale? I know, of course, you speak a lot on mental health, and you have, of course, spoken in various events and panel discussions back in India. So please throw some light on that.
Thank you. Emotional Ability Resources was born during the pandemic because everybody was struggling. People were talking about how they were anxious. And my question is, we are not psychopaths. We can be anxious, but do we need to have an anxiety disorder? What do you say? So certain times in life when everything is unforeseen, we feel very challenged. So I realized while we were talking about diagnosis, while we were talking about how to identify certain things and we were comfortable with labeling, but there was really nothing which spoke about what is it that you can do on a daily basis. And when I spoke about books, everybody was like, books? Who reads books these days? You know, it's all about AI, it's all about social media. Yes, I can see all my fellow panelists grinning. So my take was, without a toothbrush on the sink, can you brush? We can't, right? So in the same way, without a book in hand, sometimes we don't have that necessary resource which helps us solidify our experience. Let's say all of us are talking here, we are sharing our ideas, but by the time we exit, it's out of our head. But when you have a book in your hand, it's something tangible. When you hold it, when you feel somebody is holding on to you. So when we talk about emotional well-being, what's really, really important is we understand that how is it that we feel that the positives in our life are more than the negatives. Simple thing, develop your emotional ability. So one of the really big challenges that I faced was getting people to acknowledge that yes, mental health care can actually be as simple as brushing daily, bathing daily. So for physical hygiene, we do a lot. And we had our esteemed panelists talk about financial independence. We had you talk about healthcare. We are very aware and we want to look after ourselves holistically, right? But can we honestly say that we do brushing of our mind on a daily basis? We meditate because we read it's good. We've heard podcasts and everything. But really, do we know what to do with specific emotions? So that is how Emotional Ability Resource was born as a theoretical model of emotional intelligence. Let me name my emotions. Let me understand how do I want to regulate them. And ultimately, how is it that helps me connect better with people and also really give it my best. So my potential, which has just been laying latent, comes out. So that is how emotional well-being based on Emotional Ability Resources was born. And
I'd now like to welcome Kanika as well, who's the founder and CEO of Jet Set Go. She's a pioneer in India in the aviation industry, managing and operating India's largest private jet and helicopter with decades of experience. And of course, she has done the fastest connectivity between point A to point B. So she comes from a very, very diverse background. So Kanika, I'm just going to quickly ask you, and Carl, I'm going to come back. So, Ms. Kanika, tell us your entry into the aviation industry at a young age is truly inspirational, reflecting on your journey. And you can share a moment where these challenges you faced as a young woman in a male-dominated sector, transforming it into a catalyst for not only breaking barriers, but reshaping the narrative of leadership in aviation.
Hi, thank you so much. I'm really sorry for the delay. I've been juggling panel to panel, trying to navigate the snow. But, I get asked this very often, Stuti, and everyone says that, male-dominated industry, I had a very lethal combination. I got into this business as a woman when I was very young. I was 21, I think, when I started the company. I was a girl. And I often was the only skirt in a room full of suits. And everyone always says, asks, how did you navigate this? How did you figure it out? It wasn't hard, and I would be lying if I had to say that, it was hard because I was a woman or it was hard because I was young. On the contrary, I think it was much easier. I think we're living in a world today where everyone's encouraging and celebrating women leadership. Everyone's encouraging women entrepreneurs. I mean, I'm living in a country where it's cool to be a woman and be an entrepreneur now. Unlike the country my mother lived in, where if she wanted to work, she wasn't allowed to work, or she wasn't, forget allowed, it wasn't even normal for her to work. So, I always think, I personally believe that there's no better time to be a woman than now. And there's no better time to set the right examples for the future generations in terms of what we can achieve, keeping gender aside, what we can achieve being, human beings. I personally believe that, you shouldn't get a woman entrepreneurship award. You shouldn't get an award for being the best woman in aviation. You shouldn't get an award for being a woman. You should get an award for your skills. I should get an award for being the best entrepreneur. I should be recognized for the aviation business I'm building. I don't want to be recognized for building an aviation business because I'm a woman. I think that's a very unfair world to live in. At the same time, I think, it's very, more easily said than done to say that everyone has it easy. No, I know it's not very easy for most women across the world. Everyone has their own experiences, which is why I say as women leaders, we have a responsibility to, set the right example, to not, not bring women down. Like this, I always say there's a boys club that exists, right? You'll always see men enabling men. I see my husband's friends, how they stand up for him, what they do for him. At the same time, you'll never see women celebrating another woman's success. And I think, that's something that needs to be spoken about. That's something that needs to be acknowledged, that women need to support women. Women need to enable women. Women need to do more for women. Whether it's in mental health, whether it's in the personal relationships, whether it's in their business, in whichever area, I think, it's women leaders need to pave the path, set the right example to create an environment where women can succeed, where women can empower and enable each other.
I'm so glad, Kanika, you brought in a perspective of India, the country we all grew up in. Our mothers were not allowed to work, but we are working, and I'm really, really glad that you brought in. And that's why, Carl, I asked Kanika the question because I knew she might say something like that, and that's why I'm going to ask you, in your extensive experience about women in leadership, what have you noticed, especially from a diverse leadership perspective, because you've been a speaker, you've had diverse experience, so can you please throw some light on innovation on women leadership?
To start with, I think that just as all of you point out, there is an unfair situation. And that's why I'm here as well, because I believe that we should break these boundaries. There are boundaries that are totally not logical these days. And if we look at the history of everything, there was a different reality that where the hunters were out and hunting, but that's not the case any longer. But in a mindset that is still sort of hardwired in our brains in a way, and we need to break that. We need to hack that. And that's something that I myself have been trying to, if we look at my personal situation with my daughter, trying to really make her understand that the world that she grows up in is a different world. She's 13 today. She started her first company when she was 10. And we are just making sure that she feels that there are no boundaries. That whatever she imagines, she's open to experiment with that. Because what we see men are doing quite much is going with a hunch and experimenting. And we're taking risks in a different way, while women are more calculating on those risks and making, to quite large extent, wiser decisions to move forward based on a calculated risk more than a hunch. I'm not saying that everything that men are doing is just going wild and crazy, but to quite large extent, we are stating our opinion like it's a fact that have in many situations not been proven yet. And as we have heard here from the panel, there's situations and rooms where men are making decisions where they don't actually understand the situation. They don't have an understanding of the product or the need for the product. So that is where we need to break those boundaries and make sure that the right people make the decisions.
Yeah, thank you. And I'm just going to now just ask a common question for all of you, and maybe Daniela, you can start. What do you see the kind of skills which women leaders need to cultivate and navigate in this dynamic environment, the business environment, which is really, really important from an innovation perspective? And please feel free to add. After Daniela, maybe Iriana, you can go next and answer that.
Yeah, so happy to. I think there are a few key things. So one, I think resilience is critical. I also think that's something that in many cases is quite natural for women, because I think to the point that was said earlier, I do think this is probably one of the best times in the history of the world to be a woman. I think that's true. And at the same time, there are still hurdles. So those two things can be true at the same time. So I think resilience is incredibly key. The second piece, which goes with resilience, is agility. So agility and adaptability, the ability to understand that one of the constants is change. Change is just the new norm. It's everywhere, whether you're in business at a big company, or whether you have your own startup, or you're an entrepreneur, or whether you're in an NGO or a government. Change is just the constant. So the ability to navigate change, to get comfortable with change, and with that kind of uncomfortable not knowing what's going to happen next, I think is key. So that comfort with ambiguity. And then the third piece that I think is really important is to have a growth mindset. just continuing to have that mindset of being a continual learner, and you will figure out, you don't have to have all of the answers, but you will develop the tools and figure out how to do the thing, whatever the thing is. So those are the three key pieces, I would say.
Yeah, thank you. Fantastic question. I would talk about impact. At least this main word we put for our international community, Women Leaders for Ukraine. It is not only for Ukraine. It's for making old world better. And what do I mean if I say impact? Let's go just to abbreviation. Each letter. I, innovation. M, movement. Then people, action, commitment, and team. What I mean, let's go with women as a women leaders with innovative approach to everything what we do. If it's gender equality or global leadership or sustainable development, we are innovative, we are creative, so we are able to come with a new and interesting approach. We already made good movement of women leadership in terms of, first of all, gender equality and all other projects we can name on that to empower women. Then we always bring people together and do a lot for people. And women are maybe not even half. I'm afraid we are majority, yeah, a bit more if we talk about all population. So it's about really vast population. Action. We not only talk to raise our voice, we really do, as a women leaders, do a lot, not only for women, but for all generation. And of course, it's our commitment. And what already I mentioned, and you confirmed that we are really very accountable about everything what we start to do. And team, yes, we are collaborative. We do a lot of teamwork. So impact, let's say again.
Yeah, Kanika, next.
So, I think, I don't know if it's a skill, but what I personally believe is that, I think the most important thing women need to start doing is start believing in themselves. If you don't believe in yourself, the world's not going to believe in you. No one's going to believe in you. You've got to be your biggest motivator, your biggest supporter, your biggest encourager. If you don't believe in your dreams, if you don't believe that you can make your dreams turn into reality, how's the world going to believe in it? I'm a big believer of what you manifest whatever happens to you. Your thoughts become things, things become action. And if you don't think you can do something, you're not going to be able to do it. And why I say this again and again wherever I go is because I mentor a lot of young girls who want to do startups and who want to become entrepreneurs or want to just build a life, etc. And more often than not, most of these girls are so doubtful about, whether they're doing the right thing, wrong thing. They're so, you mentioned the risk-taking ability of a man versus a woman. It's very disturbing to see the young girls come up to me and say that, what if this fails? If it fails, it fails. It's fine. If you don't fail, you're not going to succeed. If you don't fall, you're not going to get up. But at least have the courage to fail, have the courage to take that step. And you only have that if you believe in yourself. And I think that's something that can't be taught in a school, or it's not a skill that a college can teach you or an MBA can give you. I think it's something that parents need to hone their children. I think it's something that parents, like if I take my own example, since I was small, I was never taught to believe in myself. I come from a very orthodox, traditional Indian business family where girls live a certain way, girls do certain things. And I'm very open about when I talk about it because, I believe we should learn from other people's mistakes. Someone can learn from my mistakes. And I was never taught to believe. I was never taught. I was told it's not okay for a girl to dream. I was told your purpose in life is to get married at a certain age, do a certain thing, etc. It took me a lot of adversity to actually realize that I have the power in my hands. I have the power to be able to dream. I was really unwell when I became 21. I almost lost my life. And that's when I said, I'm going to fix this. I'm going to cure myself. I'm going to come back and I'm going to do this. And that's what really taught me the importance of, having self-belief, having your own mind in your control. If you're not going to believe that you can climb a mountain, you're not going to be able to climb a mountain. So I was telling my husband, I'm taking him skiing to Saint-Tropez, and he said, I can't ski, are you crazy? I'm going to fall down and break your bones. It's the simplest things like that. If you believe you're going to break your bones, obviously you're going to fall down and break your bones. But if you believe you can go up that mountain and try to ski down it, you're going to be able to do it.
I loved what you say, Kanika, and we all have to have the courage to do. I mean, I started my communication business when I was 23, so I just wanted to add that. And Aarti, please add on to this.
Sure. No, I'm 100% with everything all my other panelists have spoken about, like growth mindset, like, impact, believe in yourself. I want to say, like, dream big, take risk, and show up, The game is rigged. We all agree about that. But if we don't show up, then our daughters are still going to be walking into rooms where there are less skirts, and they're going to be the lone skirts in a room full of suits. So, show up.
I think one of the things that I think would really help women is scalability. We do our work and, we are like, oh, I've reached the ceiling, the glass ceiling, while we say it's a product of patriarchy, but our inner patriarch sometimes tells us that this is the glass ceiling. And sometimes we are not even aware of the glass cliff. So scalability is something which would really, really work. Secondly, self-compassion. We are constantly criticizing ourselves, and based on what Kanika said and Daniela was saying and Iriana and Aarti, everybody spoke about that. We are resilient, but we always doubt ourselves. We feel that perhaps I'm not doing enough. So that inner critic within, if we can be compassionate to our own voice, I think we would really move mountains. And thirdly, I think often we go on the road which has been trodden on, the road less traveled, as we've heard in the famous poem. When women are ready to actually walk that path, which has not been trodden on by anybody else, I think that's when a sea change will come about.
I just came up with a thought that doesn't really connect exactly to this topic, but as you mentioned, let's move mountains, then maybe that is something that we can just ask from the room here. Like, focus on one young girl or older as well, and just help that person break boundaries. Create these opportunities by showing the support and that you believe in a person, or help that individual to just fine-tune that mindset, because maybe that is the beginning, to give that support, because I know myself that I am trying to protect my daughter from tripping and falling, but as well as an entrepreneur, I know that she needs to trip and fall. She needs to learn from these things, and by showing her that whatever decision you make, see it more as an experiment and not something that you need to really say this will work. Instead, treat it as, this is an experiment. I'm going to see how this is actually going to work. And then she or anyone is actually more empowered in terms of believing that, yeah, let's try this, because if I fail, I have not failed, because this is an experiment, and it helps me to run towards my goal, and whatever I learn from the experiment is something that's going to make me move closer to the goal, whatever happens during that process. So what I encourage you guys in the audience is to find one to start with and become that person's mentor for 15 minutes maybe. Maybe that's enough to start with, and just show the person, what are your thoughts? What are your ideas? Okay, let's talk about that, and how can we make that into the first step closer to a reality?
So I think Carl brought a very interesting point, and I'm just going to ask one last question from Daniela, and then, of course, I'm going to ask our panelists to give us a winning message. But from the audience, I would encourage at least 2 or 3 questions which you could address it to any of the panelists. So please start thinking of those questions. So Daniela, you have, of course, led corporate responsibility initiatives both at Hilton, and you are doing a lot of sustainability initiatives at Bayer's Consumer Health Division. And can you share specific examples how diverse leadership teams have contributed to creating the innovative sustainability programs that drive business outcomes?
Yeah, so maybe a couple points on this. I mean, I talked earlier about the work that we've done on prenatals and expanding access to care for people in underserved communities, and how women have shaped that. I think to get maybe back to what we talked about at the broad level, When I think about us, we have 100,000 employees. 100,000 employees. It's massive. We're global and everywhere. And one of the things that I had the privilege to work on was one of our councils to look at how are we going to tackle diversity within our organization. And where we landed is we said, look, we have a goal that by 2030, we're going to have gender parity at all management levels, period. Which I think is really powerful because I'm a firm believer that, to the point you brought up, you need to be in the arena and you need a seat at the table. I've written an article on this in the past. I think having a seat at the table is essential. So to the point of bringing diverse teams together, I look for who can I bring in the room that's going to have a different perspective, who might not necessarily be there, or who maybe is on their leadership journey and they're a little earlier on it, but I want to help them along the journey. So when I think just about my team, I have probably 70% women on my team. It's a thriving team. I actually wanted to bring more men on my team because I wanted us to have more diversity. It goes both ways. But I will say that how you set up the frame and how you build these things into your system matters. So when we set that goal of gender parity at all management levels by 2030, it was key because it meant that we look differently at recruiting now. We look differently at our pipeline for talent and how we grow them. We're super intentional about investing. We're intentional about mentoring. I'm one of our executive sponsors where I raise my hand to do, 30-minute mentoring on the spot with people. And I've also found it to be very valuable. So I do think having a seat at the table matters, being in the arena matters, and showing up matters. It's not about being perfect. Sometimes you have to experiment and fail, but you gotta show up and be there, and I think that's essential.
So I love that, Daniela. And when you said, I have a 100% women's team, so I'm happy. But I'm actually looking at men. I'm looking at diversity. So anyone in the audience would like to ask any of the questions to the panelists, please feel free to ask now. Please raise your hands and we'll come and give you the mic. Anybody? Nobody? So I'm going to start with Carl. Why don't you to sort of give us like a inspirational message, like a winning message, because win is all about a movement to pay it forward. Like the last remarks, anything else you'd like to share, just give us your thoughts, like a winning message, and share that with us.
Yeah, of course. So as if we summarize what I talked about, I believe that there is a global community, but the community is not organized because everybody wants to support, if I look at myself, everybody wants to support their daughters, but maybe I'm not always the best person to support my daughter. Maybe it's best that I make an introduction to someone that I know that can answer other questions because, like for example, maybe she don't trust me for certain areas in her schoolwork because I'm her father. Then maybe there is someone in my network that can help her. If we just think about this some more, then we can actually support people close to us in a different way.
Thank you. Ariana, closing remarks and the last winning message.
I already noticed that we are out of time,
yes.
so I will say only one phrase. You can do everything. This is my message to all women.
Super. I'm going to share a motto which I live by, which is rise by lifting others. In your whole journey and this message is for every woman out there. In your journey, you're a successful leader today. Speak about your experiences because there might be a little girl somewhere who's looking up to be what you are today, and she would love to hear from you and know that it's possible. So rise by lifting others.
I think if you're looking to thrive and take quantum leaps, develop your emotional ability resources because our emotions are signals which will take us from here to where we want to be. That's my message to everyone, specifically women. Thank you.
And I think I'll just say that you're going to hear a lot of no's throughout your life. No, don't do this. No, don't try this. No, don't go there. It's up to you to turn every no into a yes and use it as a stepping stone to success.
Yeah, I was just going to ask Daniela to give because I think she has a lot of pearls of wisdom and we all have we'll all learn from her. But from Win's perspective, it's a movement to pay it forward, so we all must pay it forward. And thank you everybody for joining us. Daniela?
the girl who's been raising her hand.
Okay, please ask.
Yes, hello. So I feel I'm in the right place. I'm a woman. I'm founder of startup. I'm Ukrainian, So my question is, tell me what opportunities, maybe there are some programs for women. Like I already believe in myself. I'm already doing yes. What programs do you provide for women like me?
So we have a website called the Women Inspiring Network, which is based out of India. But if you'd like to connect with any of our women leaders for mentorship or any such things, please feel free to write to us on that. Anything which any of the other panelists are doing, feel free to add to that.
I think I need to answer you because I am Ukrainian, and so first of all, join our community, Women Leaders for Ukraine, and you will find there a lot of programs which support women, and you will have educational workshop, mentoring program, and etc., etc. So let's talk after that.
So thank you for joining us, and can we have a quick picture here with all the panelists? And thank you, Carl, Iriana, Arti, Daniela, Pragati, and Kanika for making it. Thank you so much.